Hello, readers, and welcome back to Tell Between Tales. If you have finished The Children of Time and are wondering if you should continue the series. Warning, this video contains spoilers for the ending of Children of Time. If you have not read that book, please read that book first before you watch this video, unless you're not planning on ever reading Children of Time and you just want to hear me talk. That's awesome. However, there is no way to talk about Children of Ruin without talking about the ending of Children of Time. So make sure you go ahead and get that read. This is your last chance. You still here? All right, let's do this. We are going on an adventure. As always, what is it about? So we end off at the Children of Time with our Portia spiders and their new human friends with a capital H because they have been uplifted by the uplift virus. And they are going off together to investigate the signal that they have been receiving from the far reaches of space. Whatever could it be? Well, this book doesn't start off with the same time period that we left off in. In true Tchaikovsky style, we start time hopping. And we are going to time hop all the way back to the beginning of book 1, where we have a set of terraformers that have arrived at their Goldilocks zone planet, and they are ready to rock and roll and start terraforming this planet. But there is quite a surprise in store for them. And they decide not to terraform their planet, and instead they go over to a nearby moon, which is an ice ball on the edge of the Goldilocks zone. And they decide to turn that basically into a water world. What could the benefits of this be? I really loved reading this timeline because after having read the first book, you know that the tech-killing virus is just about to come get them, so you know what's coming, and you're like, oh my goodness, what are they gonna do? How are they gonna solve this? Like, they're all gonna die, you know? So that was really, I thought that was really a fun level of suspense, just having that foresight of knowing what was coming up because of what happened in the last book, but also knowing that they can't just all die because you're reading in the second book, so something's going to happen. And the main viewpoint that we get here is from Dr. Tchaikovsky. And he is really, really, really obsessed with octopuses. Or octopi. Octopuses? Octopuses. So they are supposed to be terraforming the planet that they have called Nod, but after a series of surprises and unfortunate events, such as the tech-killing virus blast that gets sent out into space, they decide to hop over to what they've named Damascus. And Dr. Tchaikovsky is terraforming Damascus and working on that project. And at the same time, he's playing around with his fun little octopus friends. And he's decided to modify our favorite Rus Khalifi, or uplift virus, and start experimenting on his octopi. And what his goal and his intention is to have them be able to assist with repairs down on the planet, with the terraforming machinery, and he wants them to be able to problem solve and really assist the researchers. But as we have seen from the first book, anything involving the uplift virus is going to have a mind of its own, and it certainly ends up that way. In addition to the octopi, we are also in this timeline introduced to a fourth intelligence. So we've got the humans, the Portia spiders, the octopi, and then number 4, which I won't spoil for you, but I really loved the fourth intelligence because it starts off very confusing at first, and you're like, what is going on? What am I reading? And then it transitions into something that's almost like this horror component to it. And it's very, very creepy. And it's just like, whoo, just like give you goosebumps all over. It was really fun to read. Back in the present day, the humans and the Portia spiders are approaching Nod and Damascus, they're approaching the solar system, and everything is not as it seems. There is definitely a mystery here to be solved, and thus the adventure unfolds. So, what did I like about this book? Like I said in my previous video, this was my favorite book of the three. And one of the big reasons is because the language is so much better in this book. I give this book a score of 8 out of 10 for language. It was so much better. And I wonder if part of this is because Tchaikovsky did this intentionally, because in the first book, the humans are very rough and tough. You know, they're the last survivors of humanity who have gone out to try to find a new home, and they're really represent a lot of the negative aspects of humanity and a lot of the contention and, you know, rough around the edges and easy to engage in fighting, you know, and kind of our natural instinct to like always jump onto the offensive. You know, they go through that whole prisoner's dilemma in there. But in this book, the humans have been uplifted. So we are better in this book. We are more peaceful. We understand other species better and are not quite so prone to instantly jump to violent choices in this book. And so I'm almost wondering if maybe that's why he chose not to have the language be as bad as it was in the first book. Would be curious to know if anybody knows if this was an intentional point that he is making, or if it just kind of came out that way as a happy circumstance. The big theme of this book is definitely going to be that of language and communication. If you've seen that movie Arrival, this book has very much a same feel to it. It's that whole question of how do you bridge the language gap between you and someone else or another species that you cannot communicate with, that you have no idea for how you're going. There's no way you can communicate. Like the octopi communicate largely through their skin and their color patterns on their skin, and we have no way of replicating that. And they cannot read our language because they can't hear our vibrational sounds. And so they're underwater. And so if you want to communicate with them or be in the same room with them, we obviously don't breathe water. So you have to be completely in the suit. And so how do you communicate in that role? And what help can technology be when trying to break these language communication barriers? This theme is also continued to be explored, even though the human and Portia spider relations are a lot better. We're not just exploring communicating with the octopi, we're also working on improving communications between humans and Portia spiders, and the technology that is going into that to allow humans to feel the foot tapping that the spiders do, because we aren't able to feel the vibrations of that, and it helps to interpret what the spiders are saying that way. Also, one of the other groups that we follow, his name is Meshner and Fabian. They're trying to work more physically with implants, and they're trying to work on how do you pass along these ported spider understandings to other species. So they've already been able to pass them around between themselves. That technology developed in the first book. And now they're trying to figure out how do you do that interspeciesly. And so that is a really fascinating idea as well. And is that something that's even possible? And can technology help you with that? And what kind of damage would that do to your brain, and the dangers of developing this technology? And are you willing to take those chances? And are the people who care about you, the society that you're in, willing to even let you take those chances? All right, so the octopi community is just crazy. Like, these guys are so, I don't want to say funny, because the book is not funny, but when you think about the civilization and the society of the octopus, of the octopi, the octopuses, they are just ridiculous. They're like all over the place. They're always changing sides, and they keep changing their mind, and they're over here and over there, and then one just decides to jump up and take control and do their own thing, and they have a lot of fun with that throughout the book. And there's a lot of little quips about, oh, as long as they don't just all of a sudden change their mind and decide to blow us up, There's a lot of fun little quips and references to their, fluid nature, and I thought that was really fun. They were fun to read. I enjoyed reading about their development, and their development and their history goes by much faster in this book. Tchaikovsky doesn't spend as much time building them up as he did in Children of Time with the spiders. So you get kind of a summary of what happens, during the in-between time period era. And then I thought that was really fun to read. And lastly, the whole spooky vibes from the Fourth Intelligence was just really spot on. I thought it was so cool. It gave me goosebumps. It was quite an adventure. And you even get a POV from the Fourth Intelligence's viewpoint. And you're like, what is going on? What am I reading? This doesn't make any sense. But it all comes together, and it all makes sense in the end. And you're like, oh yeah, okay, I get it now. And it was a really great book. It had, mild moments of humor strewn throughout to help lighten the mood. It had undertones of creepiness and horror. And then, of course, all of the deep diving into how do you explore and, communicate with other people? How do you develop those communication skills and bridge that gap? There's really not much that I didn't like. If there was anything that fell a little flat with me or that didn't quite register with me, it would probably be the Kern subplots that are in there. And that whole subplot is really exploring the ideas of artificial intelligence. And Kern is like mostly ants at this point. And so, who knows what, she would or would not do, was human and uploaded into AI and then turned into ants. And now she's a part of their spaceships. And so they bring up the themes of AI that a lot of other movies have explored is, oh, what if AI goes rogue? Or what if they put their interests ahead of the missions? Will AI ever turn on us? You start seeing some of those threads plucked at throughout this series or throughout the book. Those questions kind of pop up, and Kern kind of is philosophizing. Is that a word? Philosophizing. That's definitely not right. And anyway, she starts thinking through some of these thoughts of what would she do to achieve her own ends. She has something that she wants more, and does she want it more than the safety of the crew type of a thing? And so, those themes were pretty interesting, but it just kind of was a little long-winded, and it didn't really fit as much in the whole overarching concept of the book, and it was kind of it just didn't quite jive quite as well. And I didn't mind reading about it. It wasn't something that was like, oh, this whole part is awful. It just gets a little bit long-winded with her subplot at the end, but other than that, it was great. I loved it. So in conclusion, if you love reading about overcoming communication barriers and language barriers, and you love science, and you love learning about how other species became intelligent and problem solving and working through all that, or if you really loved the first book and you want to spend more time in the world, or you want more of the same of the first book, I wouldn't say that this is a carbon copy of the first book. Some of the criticisms that I've heard is that Tchaikovsky retold the story of the first book all over again. And I would say that I disagree with that. I think that this book, while it definitely jumps back in time and you say, okay, we've got the humanity, going through this kind of whole thing again. And you've got the core group of people and they get hit with the virus, and then you've got the species that's being uplifted. You've got a couple of those same themes, but that's more of a minor part, like minor plot, versus the major plots are going to be how they interact with each other. Also, the octopi are really just fun, and they're really different than the ported spiders. So, kudos on thinking up two entirely unique species that originated on Earth and became their own thing. That was really fun to read about. So all in all, an outstanding book. Tchaikovsky, you did it again. Thank you so much. Let me know if you decide to read this book, if you're going to pick it up. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.